is the form builder. This is where you would go to build out the forms that you're going to use in the system, whether those are evaluations that you want your employees to complete or surveys that you want them to complete. They're going to be stored in here, and this is where you would go to create them, and this is where you can go to make modifications on them. Now, before I hop into the form builder, I just want to go and take a look at the help section here, because there's a section specifically devoted to the form builder. So here, under system configuration forms, there's a lot of useful information in here that you can utilize. So it tells you how to add a new form, tells you how to find and manage forms, tells you how to clone or copy a form. It also shows you the questions that you can create within a form. So you have all these different question types that you can utilize and pull into a form. So it would be a good idea to go through these just so you get an idea of the different types of questions that you can build out in Top Performance. What's also nice is you have the ability in Top Performance to assign scoring to your forms. So if you have an evaluation form and you're building out your questions and the answers are, say, excellent, good, fair, poor, you can assign a numerical value to those answers. So you can say excellent is 5, good is 4, and then that way when you're running reports, the system will calculate those scores. And on evaluations, you'll get a percentage or a score of how that person did. So this is a nice document because it explains how the system calculates all that scoring. So you might want to take a look at that as well. So going back to the database here, if I click into the form builder, it's basically going to load a search screen and all the existing forms are going to be here for you to access. So there's just some sample forms in here for you to take a look at, and basically going to give you the form name, the category. So this is where we were before in the maintenance tables. These are all your form categories, whether the form is active or inactive. And then if I click on the row actions here, you see you have a lot of options here. You can edit the form, so you can either click edit here or you can click into the name of the form. You can copy the form, and this is very helpful because you're going to see as we start to create processes and stuff like that, when a form is pulled into a process and assigned and people are answering questions on that form, it becomes locked because there's historical data tied to it. So the system won't let you edit it. So you can't add new questions. You can't take questions away. The form is locked. So that's where this copy feature comes in handy, because you can basically copy the entire form, create it new, and then all you have to do is make your modifications on that new form. So you don't have to build the form from scratch again. Then you can preview a form and see what it's going to look like. So if I click preview right now, you can see what our form looks like, the annual appraisal one. You can see how it's broken out, the different types of questions here. You can see all this information in the preview here. What's nice about this is you can see it previewed in different platforms. So right now we can see it as it would look if the end user is accessing it via laptop or desktop. If you want to see what the form is going to look like if they're accessing it via a tablet, you can see how it's going to look. And then you also have the ability to see how it's going to look via a mobile device. So if they're completing the evaluation via their mobile device, you can see how it's going to look. So the admins can see how this information is going to display to the end user, and then they can make modifications accordingly. Then you also have the ability to delete forms. Again, that comes with restrictions, because if the form is in use, the system won't allow you to delete it. You can deactivate the form if it's not needed anymore. And this is a nice feature because you can actually print a blank evaluation form from here. A lot of times different departments want to see the forms and, take a look at them and make modifications. So the admin can come in here, click print, and they'll be able to print the blank form right from here. So that's a nice feature as well. So if I scroll down, you can see all the different forms that I have here. Now you'll notice this one has a little lock icon on it, and this is what I was referencing before. If the form is in use, either in a process or a survey, and there's historical data tied to it, you're going to see this little lock icon, and that lets you know that you're not going to be able to edit the form. There's certain things you can do, like typos you can fix and stuff like that, but major modifications you won't be able to do, and that's where that copy feature comes into play. So you can make the modifications there. So if I want to take a look at this annual appraisal, I previewed it, but now I actually want to get into the form and see what it looks like. If I click into the annual appraisal here, it's basically going to list out all the questions that I have in this particular form. Okay, these are all my questions. And then specific to each question, I have some actions I can take. If I just want to preview the question, I can preview the question. A nice feature here is I can actually copy the question. So if you have a question that has the same answers, like excellent, very good, good, instead of adding the question, adding the question, adding the question, I can just click copy and it'll copy the entire question. And then all I have to do is change, the question title or the description. Then you can delete it if you want. This is where you would edit it if you wanted to make changes. And then you can also reorder it. So as you're building the form and you realize, oh, I want to move it around, I can use this to move it around. Then again, once you're in the form itself, you can come and preview the form. So you'll get back to that particular section. Your form settings, this is where the actual information for the form is. So the name of the form, etc. So if I click into here, this is the name of my form. This is the form type, whether it's an evaluation or survey. This is the form category. So all of these are from the maintenance table. Here's my form instructions that I can pull in here. Status is whether it's active or inactive. This is the scoring. So if you have no scoring tied to your form, no score method, you can also use a single question as the score, and you can use multiple choice and ratings as well. Then going back to the scoring, you have the ability to enable weighting. So, if certain sections should count more in the score or certain questions, you can do that. Then you can also tell the system how you want the form displayed tied to the numbering. For your questions, do you want your questions numbered 1, 2, 3, Roman numerals, etc.? And then you can also exclude certain questions from the numbering. So this is where you would update all that information specific to the form. And then here is where you would add your questions, update your questions, etc. like that. So if you need to make any modifications at all, you would do that here. And you can see how the questions appear here. So you can see this is a ratings question and it's horizontal. Then here's a rating question. You can see it's vertical. So you can see the different ways the information can appear. And then you'll also notice there are sections here. So you can see this is a section, this is a section, that's a section. So you can break up your form based on these sections. And then here under Form Builder Options, this is where you can go and make modifications. So if you need to add another section, you can do that. If I click on the Add Question button, this gives you the ability to pick from all the different question types. So you have a grid question, a ratings question, an essay question, 2 types of multiple choice questions, the text field, which is basically a fill in the blank, signature field, and then just an information box. If you want to just explain a certain section to them or something like that, you can do that. The other thing you can do is this collapse button will give you the ability to hide the actual answers. So all you would see are the questions. So if I click collapse, you can see how then it just gives you the different sections and the questions. So that's a good way of making sure you've added all your questions. You're not missing any because you can quickly see all the questions here. And then if you want to expand it, then you can pull back in the answers as needed. And if I click on this little question mark here, this basically gives you some information on the different question types and why you would use them. And it gives you a little sample. So if you're not familiar with the different types of questions you can use, this will explain it a little bit more on why you would use the different types of questions. Let's create a sample form. So I'm going to click Add, and you can see this looks like it did when we were looking at the existing form. So, and you can see the fields that are required because it has a red asterisk. So the form name, I'm just going to do micron sample. Then under form type, this is where I would pick if it's for evaluation or survey. And then form category, that's my maintenance table. So I'll say this is a self-eval. Then form instructions, I can put any kind of instructions in here that I want. I can say ratings, 5 is good, 4 is fair, etc. So you can modify this as you want. You can also include links in here. So like, for instance, if you have a competency document that ties back to what the ratings are and stuff like that, you can include that link in here. And when the evaluators or the evaluatees are completing the form, they can reference that document as needed. Then again, whether it's active or inactive, score type, I'm going to use the multiple choice and ratings. I'm not going to put any weights on or anything like that. Then I can pick my numbering style. So questions, I'll just pick 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to exclude those from the numbering. Once I have all that information in, I hit save. Now, because my form is brand new and I haven't started building anything out, that help section here is displayed here. As I start building out my form, this will go away. And then I can start building out my form using either I want to pull in sections and questions. So if I want to add a section, I just click add section. And then you can see it's basically a wizard. It's going to walk you through updating the information. But because this is just a section, it's very basic. Put in the name of the section. And then I can put some additional information in here. I can use images. And then when I click next, it's going to show how the section is going to appear in the form. And then I just click finish. And now I have section A. Now I can start building out my questions. I can pick whatever question type I want. I can pick rating, multiple choice. So I'll grab a rating question. And here you can see, because this is a question, now I have some additional options here. So I'm going to put in my question title. I can put in some instructions. This I can specify if the question is required. In order for them to submit the form, they have to answer this question. I can also enable comments if I want them to give some additional narrative on a, whatever they picked. If they picked excellent, okay, why did you say excellent? And I can change the way the title for the comments appears. If I leave this blank, it'll just show as additional comments, but I can change it to something else if I want. Please elaborate. And now, because I picked multiple, the multiple rating scoring, I can pick which questions will actually be included in the score. So not every multiple choice question or rating question has to be pulled into the score if I don't want it. So I can say yes or no to that. And then once I have all that information filled in, then I just click next. And now this is where I'm going to build out my answers. And I can pick and choose how those answers are going to be displayed in the form. I can do it by columns, or I can do it by a row if I want. And then here I have all these different options to create my answers. I can do a custom rating where I just type in the answers myself. I can do yes, no. I can use numbering 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can do the standard labels. Those are the excellent, good, fair, poor. I'm going to do the standard labels, and you can see how it pulls in excellent, good, fair, poor. And now I can assign scoring. So I can say excellent is, say, 4, good is 3, fair is 2, and poor is 1. Now, because I have scoring here, maybe this particular question, the evaluator can't answer. They didn't work with them in that capacity, so they really can't answer it. But if they don't answer it, it's going to skew the score. So what I can do is I can add an additional answer choice, and I can assign this one NA, not applicable. They can't answer this question. And what I can do is this little NA column here, I can specify that this particular answer is not applicable and shouldn't be pulled into the scoring. So you see how it removes the scoring there. It won't skew the form or the scoring or anything like that. Now, because I enabled comments, What I can do is I can require comments on only specific answers. So for instance, they only have to put in narrative if they pick excellent or poor. Then I'm going to require a comment. So if they pick good or fair, that's all they have to do, and they can move on to the next question. But if they pick excellent or poor, they have to give me some additional narrative as to why they picked that particular answer. And they won't be able to submit the form until they answer those comments there. And then once I have all that set up, I can click next. And now this is how it's going to display on my form. Everything looks good. I click finish. And now you can see how that information went away, and now the form is starting to get filled out. And now you can see this particular question is going to count in the scoring. And now I can move on to my next question. And again, like I mentioned before, if my next question is the same, all I have to do is click copy, and you see how it pulls in the copy right here. And then all I have to do is edit it and say, okay, this is question 2. And if all my answers are the same, everything is the same, I'm done with that question. And I could do the same thing, how to build out the form. I could just keep copying, 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 and we're good to go with the form. And then if at any time I want to preview it, I can see how it's going to look. So this is the name of my form. These are my form instructions, and you can see how it's starting to build out. And then I can go, if I need to change it, I can change it and pick a different. If I want an essay question, I can pick an essay question. And then I could decide, maybe I want this question moved. So I can click here. I can say, well, I want it to come after section A. I want this question to be up there. And I can say, okay, this question's required. And then I can click next. And now you can see how it moved it up to the top. And now these are the questions here. And now you can see this question's required because it has a red asterisk at the end of it. And then I can just keep building out my form that way. And what's nice about the information box here is if I click on the information box, you have all these tokens. So again, if you want to pull in billable, non-billable hours for the employee, you can do that. So I can say associate details. And then I could say something like billable hours. And then I can pull this token in. And then I can say non-billable hours. And then I can do pro bono hours. And then I can grab pro bono hours. And then again, I can move that. And I could say, well, this is going to be the first section, because this way Evaluator is accessing this form for this particular individual. They'll see all this information at the top of the form. So now you can see the associate details, all the information here. And then if I want to preview the form, I'd be able to preview it. And they would be able to see all this information, because this information will pull from the People Central salary and accounting information.